Let's install Google Tag Manager and get all your basic codes working. Timestamps below, along with some other helpful links and resources we'll be referencing throughout this long guide to help you get started. Comment below with any of your questions and we'll go through troubleshooting any problems you deal with at the end of this guide. Now, if you already are familiar with how Tag Manager works, you know containers and accounts and triggers and events, then go ahead and jump to this timestamp where we actually start building out your account. Otherwise, let's go through the basics. Now, a good way to think of Tag Manager is a virtual file cabinet for all of your tags, triggers, events, pixels, whatever tracking codes you need to put on your website. So you'll be able to create a free account, and you'll want to create an account for each one of your businesses or clients, right? So you don't want two different businesses or two different clients having containers in the same account. It gets a little messy. So inside of your account, you're going to be making containers, and these are what you're actually going to put on your website. So each container will give you a code, and you put that code on your website. And so one container per domain, essentially. So even if you have subdomains, you have your landing pages one place, your membership site one place, and then you're on WordPress another one. It doesn't matter. You'll put Tag Manager across all of those because you're presumably using one domain. And then of course, all of your tags and triggers go inside of that container. So that is a brief overview of how Tag Manager actually works. So let's jump over to Google Tag Manager. You can just go ahead and search Google Tag Manager. You'll get to a page that looks something like this, and then we can go ahead and click on Start for Free. Now it's going to automatically log me in since I was already logged into Google. You may have to log in. You can always change the email account you're using in the future, and of course, give access and remove access as well. So we'll go ahead and come to my company. Let's just go ahead and do Fresh Edge Companies as the account name. Go ahead and select your country. I tend to leave this unchecked, and then you're going to go ahead and add your URL. Now you're going to want to add your main domain name here. So even if you have subdomains or you're using another service for part of your web pages and you're using a different domain there, go ahead and have your main domain here. So I'm going to jump over to our Tag Manager playbook to make this a little easier. You can grab a copy of this in the description or of course create your own documentation. And then of course it doesn't want all of that, and we'll go ahead and select it is a website, and we'll go ahead and click on create. It'll give us all of this stuff that we have to accept. Yes, we accept it. And then we will have our new account and container created. So this is the code that we're going to be putting on our WordPress site. If you're using any other page builders, you're going to want to put the code there as long as you're using the same domain. And so the first thing I recommend doing before you do anything else, just save this code so you don't have to keep coming back to Tag Manager every time you need it. So I'll go ahead and click on copy here. I'll copy the head tag. We'll go through an example here of what happens when you can't actually add the second code. Tag Manager will actually still work. So I'll go ahead and click OK. So I'm going to jump out here so you can see I have some other accounts set up, but we have Fresh Edge Company. So that's the account we just created for our company. And then we have our first domain here, aspireentrepreneur.com. And then we're in our workspace. So if you ever need the code again, just come up here and click, and you can copy the header and the opening of the body tag. Don't worry about the placements. It tells you where it should be, but you can get away with a lot of finagling here, and Tag Manager will still work. So that does it for setting up your account. Congratulations, you're set, you're all done. I'm just kidding. We need to actually put it on our websites now. So the first example we'll go through is, of course, the most common, and that is, let's get Tag Manager onto a WordPress site. So I'll jump over here to a new WordPress install, and some themes allow you to take your Tag Manager code and put it directly into the theme, and it makes it really nice, but not all plugins play nice. If you've ever played with WordPress, you know plugins don't always talk to each other. Page builders just don't seem to work well with each other. So what we're going to do is come down to plugins, and we're going to add a new plugin. So go ahead and click on Add New. This is a brand new site. There's pretty much nothing on it. And then we're going to go ahead, and all you have to do is search Google. And Google has actually created a plugin for you to use called Google Site Kit, or Sitekit by Google. All right, you can read, right? I'm just saying it wrong. So we'll go ahead and click on Install here. And then, of course, we will activate it. And now that it's activated, we can go ahead and click on Start Setup. Now, this helps you get started with a lot of Google products like Search Console and some other things. But here we're just going to focus on Google Tag Manager. So you'll go ahead and click on Sign in with Google. And of course, we'll need to sign in to verify that we own the website. So we'll go ahead and sign in with Google. Use the same account that you did when setting up your tag manager. And so we'll go ahead, and you do have to check all of these. Made that mistake in the past. Go ahead and click on continue here. And then of course we need to verify the site ownership. So this is a little bit more of a process than using just putting Tag Manager inside of your theme or using a third-party plugin, but it makes it a heck of a lot easier to manage in the future, and it makes sure that it's put in the correct place on your WordPress site. So we'll go ahead and click on Proceed here, and then we'll click on Allow, and then they want you to add it to Search Console. Even though that's not really part of our Tag Manager process, we'll just go ahead and add it to Search Console. Go ahead, and now we should be all set. So we can go to our dashboard here. And just like that, SiteKit is installed on our site. And of course, we've verified it via Search Console very, very quickly. If you've ever had to do that in the past, it was quite annoying. And so now what we want to do is use the plugin that we just set up, installed, and verified to put Tag Manager on our site. So, okay, we got it. And of course, there's a bunch of other information that you can go through later. So let's go ahead, jump over to our settings here, and we'll connect more services and select Set Up Tag Manager. Now, even though we copied all of that code, we'll go ahead and choose our account again. It wants to verify again, so we'll go ahead and click on Continue here. I know this is a lot of steps, but it's a lot faster than what we used to have to do. So now that we verified again, we can go ahead and click Fresh Edge Companies, which is the account that we just created. The container is aspireentrepreneur.com, and we'll go ahead and confirm and continue. And just like that, Google Tag Manager is now on our WordPress site. So we'll quickly go through an example of adding it to a different type of page builder, and then we'll go ahead and go through a very simple process to verify that the tag has actually been installed. So another example here, I'm going to jump into a funnel builder like Systemi.io. So this of course would be different depending upon whatever page builder you're using. But in this particular instance, you'd want to go to your account settings, and then you want to look for something to the effect of links, tracking, third-party analytics. In this particular instance, it's called sales funnel settings. And then you're going to want to paste in your tracking code. So if I come over to our Tag Manager playbook here, I'll go ahead and select all of that, and I'll paste it in. Now, with this particular service, you'll notice that there's not another place to insert code. This is telling us it's going to put it in the header tag. And so if you don't have the option to put it in the body, this second code in your body tag, you only have a header tag option, then that's okay. You can go ahead and just put it in the header tag and it will still work. So let's just jump back over to WordPress. This is our amazing WordPress site. And we're going to use a free plugin called Google Tag Assistant Legacy now to get started. And so we'll go over to whatever search engine you want to use. We'll search for Google Tag Assistant Chrome extension. We'll come to the Chrome store. Of course, this will work in any Chromium-based browser. And then we'll go ahead and click on Add to Chrome. And we'll add the extension. And then you'll come up to your extensions menu, which is cut off just because I'm using a MacBook and there's different dimensions here. So you'll click on that little icon and you need to enable all of these and click on Done. And then once you do, it will be all set. So we'll come back over to our site. We will click on the icon again, and then we need to click Enable. So every time you want to use this plugin, you need to go to the web page, click Enable, and then refresh the page. So we'll go ahead and refresh. And then if we click again, we will see that Tag Manager is in fact on our site. So we can go ahead and click through, and then we can see if any errors are popping up. There'll be error codes down here. But glue means go. Blue or green means you're good to go. You're all set. That's all you need to do for setting up Tag Manager so it's on your site. Now I'm going to come over to a Systemi.io landing page here to show you what it looks like when you are using something that isn't WordPress. So we'll come here and you'll see that Tag Manager is also firing correctly. And so as long as Tag Assistant is showing your Tag Manager code on your website, Tag Manager is working correctly. It's good to go as long as it's blue or green. Yellow or red means there might be something you need to look into. And of course, you can always verify that it's the right code, because underneath here, if we click, you'll see that it actually tells us our GTM, our code here, or label. And so if we come back over to our Tag Manager, you'll see that it is the same. And so we're all set with Tag Manager. It's on our site. We're ready to add all of the other tracking codes, pixels, setup events that we need. Now, the first code we want to set up, now that everything is complete, is going to be Google Analytics. Now, if you already have a Google Analytics account, you can go ahead and log in, or just search Google Analytics. You'll get to a page that looks something like this. And then of course we can click on Start for Free. And because I'm already logged in, it automatically logs me into Google Analytics here. We can come down to click on Admin, and this is where you can create a new account. You can see the accounts you already have access to, and of course the properties that you already have access to. I'm not going to create a new account, but I will create some new properties so you can see the entire process. So let's go ahead and click on Create Property here. And of course, we need to give our property a name. So I'll come over to our Tag Manager playbook here just to save us some time. I'll grab a copy of what I want to call this property. So this is going to be Universal Analytics. And link in the description to grab a copy of our Tag Manager playbook to help you stay organized with all of your tags and triggers. Of course, you can always make your own documentation. Now for this first one, we're going to click on Advanced Options, and we're going to click Create a Universal Analytics property. Now this might be a little confusing because Universal Analytics is the old version of Analytics. It's pretty much old news. But the new version of Analytics doesn't give you all the data yet. It's actually really annoying. So I'm going to go ahead and grab our URL here. So this is going to be the URL for this particular site. And then we can actually create a Google Analytics 4 and a universal property at the same time once we click this. So that's the advantage of clicking Advanced Options here. And then of course, I need to make sure that I don't include the HTTPS because it has it for us already. And we'll go ahead and click on Next. It'll ask us a couple of questions here. It's not really all that important to what you click here, and we'll go ahead and click on Create. And just like that, we should have created our two different properties. So it's for the same website, but one's going to be universal and the other is going to be Google Analytics 4. Now, to save you some time, the only thing you need from this interface is the measurement ID. You can go ahead and leave all of these other things alone. So we'll go ahead and copy our measure ID. I'll go ahead and come over to my Tag Manager playbook, and I will just drop it in there so I can save it for the future. And then I'll go ahead and exit out. So definitely save all these codes to some central document so you don't have to continually go back and forth to find what you need. And so I'm going to come out here. And so you'll see up here, we have our GA4 version, and then we have our normal UA version. And so I'm just going to quickly, under Property Settings, rename this to Google Analytics 4. And click on Save so I know the difference. And we just use a 4-letter code for our different websites, so it's easy for us to know what the website is without typing it out all the time. So that's what that FEAA means. So we have our universal version, and then we have our Google Analytics 4 version. So if you ever need to come back to this interface and get the measurement ID, just click on Data Streams, and you'll see we can click on the URL and we're back in the same place. So you can always come back, get your measurement ID, your stream ID, everything else that you need. For the most part, once you grab this, because you're using Tag Manager, you won't have to come back. So I'll go ahead and exit out of that, and I'll click the button over here to come back to our property listing. And now we need to click on our universal version and grab our universal analytics code, or UA code. So click on Property Settings here, and this is going to be our UA code, our tracking ID. And I'll go ahead and save that here so that I can just find them for easy reference later. So we have a UA code, and then we have a measurement ID. So you do need both because we have two separate properties. Now, the good news is Google Analytics is going to track data for you in both properties the same. It's just that as you start getting more advanced, you'll be very happy that you still have Universal Analytics collecting data for you. There's no penalty to having both. So with that, we're done creating our 2 tags. We're done inside of Google Analytics, so we can jump over to Google Tag Manager. Now, of course, I'm already inside of the container and account that I want. Of course, if we go back out, we can always select which container or account that we want to be using. I'll jump back in here. You can always just hit this arrow to go back. And now let's go ahead and create a tag. So we'll click on New Tag here. And of course, we'll need to give our tag a name, tell Google Tag Manager the configuration, and of course, the triggering. So of course, to save time, I'll just go ahead and copy our Google Analytics 4 here. So we'll go ahead and copy that in, and I will cut out the measurement ID. So there I have my name, and I like to name it the same thing the analytics property is, so it's really easy to know what is what. So we'll go and click on tag configuration, and you'll see we have universal, we have GA4, and then we have GA events. GA events we'll leave for another day when we start getting fancy. So we'll click on GA4 first because that's what we're setting up. So this is Google Analytics 4, and we just paste in our measurement ID. Go ahead and leave server alone for now. This is something fun you can play with in the future if you really want to get advanced. And then all of these other ones, you can go ahead and leave alone as well. So just keep it basic so we don't mess anything up. We'll go ahead and click on triggering here. And triggering is telling us when do we want this to fire. Essentially, when do we want to have Google Tag Manager send data to Google Analytics? And because Analytics is tracking everything, unlike conversion tracking, we'll go ahead and click on all pages. So we've gone ahead, we've given it a name that's easy for us to remember, and then we've pasted in our measurement ID, selecting Google Analytics 4, and we've told it to fire on all pages. So we'll go ahead and click on Save here. And once you do, you'll see that there will be your email, which is why this is all blurred out, and then it will show that there is a new workspace change. And so if you're ever pulling your hair out going, why isn't something working? It might be because it's not live. So what we just did is in draft mode, right? So this is going to list out all of the things that are in draft that haven't been posted live to the site. So we're going to create one more tag. So we'll go and click on New Tag here. I'll come over to our playbook, copy our name and then the UA code. I'll go ahead and paste that in. And of course, I don't need that, just to save us some time. And then we'll go ahead and click on Tag Configuration. Now, last time we did Google Analytics 4. This time, we're going to do Universal Analytics. So we'll click Universal Analytics, Page View, and if you've seen older tutorials, they didn't used to do it this way. But just go ahead and click on Enable Overriding Settings for this tag, and then paste in your measurement ID. I know there's going to be some, moderate to advanced users who are like, you shouldn't do it that way. You should add this tag and trigger. But the first time you're doing this, just get it on your site. You can always come back and add complexity later. So I like done is better than perfect. Just do it the simple way. You can always add complexity later once you start getting into custom events and into your data layer. So we'll go ahead and click on triggering here, and we'll select all pages. So we have our Universal Analytics. It's going to fire on all pages. We'll go ahead and click on Save. Now in our preview here, you'll see we actually have 2 listings. And so we have our 2 Google Analytics tags. Let's just publish the container. I'm talking over myself. So we have our 2 tags all set, ready to go. So we'll come over here and click on Submit to make the changes live. So we'll click on Submit. It's going to ask us to tell us what on earth we just did. And I'll go ahead and paste in some basic information so that when we come back in 5 or 10 years, we know what on earth was done. And then we can go ahead and click on Publish. So I'm not going to sing, but you can if you want. It'll give us a quick summary of the tags that were published here. And then, of course, we can go over to our website and see the actual changes. So we'll come back to our workspace. You'll see there are no longer any workspace changes. And this green will update with whoever made the change and how long ago the change was made. And so to see our actual changes, unfortunately, you can't use Tag Assistant, the plugin, for everything anymore. They're really forcing us to use the preview mode. So we'll go ahead and click on preview mode here. And once we do, it'll start loading up. You'll go ahead and drop in your website URL or the page that you want to test. We'll go ahead and click on Connect here. Should work on connecting. And then it will open up in a new tab or window. You'll see debug information for this page is viewable in the Tag Assistant window. So we'll come back over to where we're connected, we'll click continue, and you can see that our two codes have in fact fired. So the Analytics 4 tag is fired and the Universal Analytics tag is fired. Now, if I were to go over to our website here and refresh the page, because Google is phasing out the assistant, which is kind of sad, you'll see that you won't actually see your measurement ID. So Google Analytics 4 doesn't always show up in this anymore. So that's why you have to start using the preview mode to make sure things are installed. Although I still recommend just use the plugin to make sure that Tag Manager is actually on your site, right? So I still like using the plugin when you're first installing Tag Manager, just make sure it's there. And then after that, start using this preview mode to see how your tags are firing. And of course, you can get a lot more complex with seeing how your conversion tags fire and events top fire in the future. So all you have to do to end it is go ahead and just click the X button, stop debugging, and of course, you'll be able to see a short history of things that you've been testing in the past. So I'll go ahead and exit out of this and come back to our dashboard. Now, the first step to setting up your Google Ads remarketing tag is not inside of Tag Manager, but inside of Google Ads. And so go to your Google Ads account, click on Tools and Settings, and then you'll go to your Audience Manager. Now, if you're setting this up for the first time, you'll just go ahead and click on Set Up an Audience. If you've already set this up in the past and you're looking for a previous code, you can click on your data sources. So if I click on Set Up an Audience, it'll take us to your data sources anyway. So either way, you want to be on this page. So I'm going to click these little plus these three little dots because it's the first time we're setting this up. So we'll go ahead and click on Edit Source here, or this would be the process that you go through for creating a new tag. And you're going to collect general website information. You can get more advanced. You can click Learn More if this is really going to be helpful to you. 9 out of 10 new businesses don't really need this though. So we'll go ahead and only collect website, general website data. And then if you want to turn on restricted processing, you can. I recommend just leaving this blank. This is just California messing with us, right? So just go ahead and leave it alone. Unless you know for a fact like no one in California buys your stuff. Then of course go ahead and turn that on so you can actually start gathering a little more information. And then for advanced settings, you can go ahead and leave this alone. We'll go ahead and click on Save and Continue. And we'll go ahead and say we're going to use Tag Manager. So all we need is this conversion ID. Not selecting everything there. We'll go ahead and copy our conversion ID. I'll save it to our Tag Manager playbook here. Save it to whatever documentation you want to use for easy reference in the future. And then of course we can go ahead and click on Continue and select Done. And with that, our data source is ready to go. And of course you can come back here later and start creating custom audiences based upon how people interacted with your site. But as long as you see that there is a Google Ads tag that has been created, of course, the issue being we haven't installed it yet, you can head back over to Tag Manager to install your code. So inside of Tag Manager, of course, you can go to Tags and see all the tags you have set up and click on New, or from our overview, we can just click on Add New Tag. And we'll need to, of course, configure our tag. So for our tag configuration, we're going to select Google Ads Remarketing. So we'll go ahead and select Google Ads Remarketing. And of course, we'll need our conversion ID. We'll go ahead and drop that in. And the conversion label is optional. If you want to add these other things, you can go ahead and do that in the future. I'm just going to grab the name that I want to use for this tag and drop that in there. So there we go. Just go ahead and name it something that makes sense to you and that's easy for you to find in the future. I, of course, always like using a 4-letter code to know what website I'm talking about. And then, of course, we'll click on Triggers here, and we'll select All Pages because we want our remarketing to fire across all our pages, just like you would do with the Facebook Pixel and your Google Analytics tags. So we'll go ahead and click on Save here, and you'll see that we have a workspace change. Of course, it's blurred out because it has my email plastered all over the place. I made the mistake in some previous videos, and boy, do you get a lot of spam when you just share your email willy-nilly on YouTube. So once you have this, we're ready to submit. So we'll go ahead and click on Submit here. We'll just go ahead and give it a brief description of what we did. and I'll just be OCD and put all the information in here. And you just want something basic, so when someone like yourself comes back in a year or two, you're not going to remember that you did this. At least you have a pretty good documentation of how your containers changed. So we'll go ahead and click on Publish. We'll skip the singing part, as always, because nobody needs to hear me say that. And then you can come down here and you can see all of the tags that have just been added, and then of course all the tags that are already on your site. And sorry for the terrible cut. I got way ahead of myself and completely forgot to talk about conversion linkers. So anytime you've added your remarketing tag or you're setting up your conversion tags for Google Ads, you're going to want to add conversion linkers. So you'll have this little warning at the top that will tell you to add the tag, or you can go ahead and add it manually. So I'll go ahead and add it manually so you can see how to do it if this doesn't show up for you. So all you need to do is click on Add a New Tag, and we'll just call this Google Ads Conversion Linker. And for our tag configuration, we are just going to be able to click on Conversion Linker, and this just helps with Google collecting data and sending it back to your Google Ads account. So there's nothing special you need to set up here. Triggering, you're going to set it to all pages, and then you'll go ahead and click on Save. So I'm just going to copy this so I don't have to remember it. And of course, we'll have one workspace change. So we'll go ahead and submit. We'll say this is a conversion linker. Click on Publish. Of course, always skip the singing. And with that, we are good to go. So if we come back to our workspace changes, we're all set, and that notification will most likely have gone away. So with that, it should be on your site. It should be working correctly, but let's go ahead and verify that it actually is. So to do that, we'll come over here to our preview, and then of course, we'll open up preview mode. We already have our website URL dropped in here. We'll go and click on Connect. It'll open up a new tab letting us know that debugging mode is on. So we can jump back over to Tag Assistant here, and you'll see that our Google Ads remarketing tag fired when the page loaded. And so inside of debugging mode, you can go ahead, this is a demo website, so it's just literally one page on WordPress. But if you had other pages, you could actually start clicking through and you'd be able to see the click flow inside here and see how your different tags are firing. But with remarketing tags, you just want to make sure they're firing on all pages, right? And of course, you can always click in here and you'll see more information and details. And this, of course, will be helpful when you get more advanced. But I'll go ahead and click on the X to stop debugging, and then I can just leave the Tag Assistant preview mode here. And just like that, our tag is on our site ready to go. So the next tag we're going to need to set up, of course, is going to be our Google Ads conversion tag, because we probably want to track some conversions. So that's what we're going to set up now. And when it comes to setting up your conversion tracking with Google Ads and Tag Manager, you're actually not going to start in Google Ads, you'll start in Tag Manager. And that's because you need to start by creating something called a trigger. So unlike all of the other codes you've most likely installed already, you need to come into Tag Manager and click on Triggers. And once you do, you'll be able to set up a custom trigger for your conversion, because you don't want your conversion to fire on all of your pages, right? You want your conversion to fire on specific pages when people take a specific action. So for example purposes here, to keep things simple, we're going to be using a landing page and then a thank you page. So someone enters their email here, and then of course, they're taken to the thank you page. So we want to tell Google Ads every time someone hits this thank you page to count it as a conversion, since that's our goal. Of course, you can have purchases and other types of actions as well, but we'll go ahead and start here. So all you need is the URL of your thank you page. Now, there are some advanced features or triggers where you can set it up on a button click, although I don't recommend doing that. If you have a thank you or confirmation page URL, that's always going to be better than trying to dig into your data layer or your WordPress plugin and have it fire when a message pops up or someone clicks a button. So if you can, make a separate page. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier. Although I understand not all plugins allow you to do that, unfortunately. So we'll go ahead and click on New, and we'll go ahead and give our trigger a name here. So I'm going to just call this FEA lead, so I know what the action that we're tracking is. For trigger configuration, we're going to go ahead and select page view. Now, of course, we don't want all pages because not all pages are converting or are conversion events. So we'll click on some pages, and instead of page URL, right? So there are some other things you can do here with variables, and if you have dynamic URLs in your checkout sequences, save that for another day, right? We're going to do page URL here, and then we're going to say equals. So contains, let's say for example, all your confirmation pages say thank you in some part of them. So you could do something like that. So you look for a specific word, although that can get a little tricky or messy. So I'm going to go ahead and say equals and type in the exact URL that we want to track, which is going to be this thank you page. So we'll go ahead and click on save. So page URL equals this. So anytime someone hits that page, it's a conversion, right? So we'll go ahead and click on save here. And then if we come to our overview, you'll see we have a workspace change. This is going to be our trigger. So it's not live yet. Now we can jump over to Google Ads and create our conversion event. So to do that, inside of your Google Ads account, we'll click on Tools and Settings. We'll click on Conversions, and then we'll click Create New Conversion Action, or you can grab information about conversions you've already set up. We'll click on New here. We'll select Website Conversions, and it's taking a while to load. There we go. We are doing lead forms, so someone who's submitting a form. And then, of course, conversion optimization options. This is where if you start having micro conversions where you're just tracking someone who adds something to cart or makes a small baby step, but it's not an actual event that you care about optimizing for. So for now, we'll go ahead and leave those alone. And then we're going to name it the exact same thing. We called it in Google Tag Manager, just so we know we use the same name across all of our, just use the same name so you know which two are connected, right? So FEA lead, and FEA just is a code for our funnel here. And then value, we don't want to use one. You can enter conversion values. You can set Tag Manager up so it actually pulls out the exact amount that was in the shopping cart on the confirmation page. That requires a data layer and some coding experience, so we'll skip that for now. Now, since we aren't making sales, we are just collecting contact information, we don't need to count every time the same person enters their email address. So if we left it at every, someone would come to our landing page, enter their email 10 times, and then it would count as 10 conversions. Well, this is the same person just doing the same thing over again, right? But if someone was buying 10 times, then we would care, right? So we'll go ahead and leave it at 1. View through conversion window. Everyone has their different yardstick on what this should be. I go ahead and leave it at a week. So what this is telling Google is, hey, if someone sees our ad and they click on it, and within a week they take this action, give that ad credit. And so obviously, if you gave your ads 90 days, that means someone could click on something in January and then 3 months later, sometime in April, well, no, that's 4 months. I can do math. Sometimes 3 months later, oh boy, then that ad would get the credit for that conversion. And of course, that's a really long time. So I'd say 7 days is good. And then you can go ahead and leave the rest of these alone. Obviously, if you want to be more advanced or you have someone else guiding you on how they want this account set up to be managed, then you can go ahead and change these. I'm going to uncheck Enhanced because I don't like Google making decisions for me. And then we'll go ahead and click on Create and Continue. And just like that, we've created our action and so our conversion. So we'll click on Tag Manager, and there's 2 pieces of information we need to save. So first, we're going to go ahead and save our conversion ID. I'm going to save it to our Tag Manager playbook. Of course, you can save it to whatever documentation you want. This is linked up in the description. It's just here to help you map out all of your codes and, of course, your conversion events. So we'll go ahead and click on Next here. We'll go ahead and click on Done. And now we have our lead. I had to add 1 because I have more. Apparently, I used that already somewhere. So we'll go ahead and we're all set, good to go inside of Google Ads. So we can jump back over to Tag Manager and create our tag. So we can go ahead and click on Create New Tag. And then for our tag name, I'm just going to call it the exact same thing I've been calling everything else. So I know what this tag is. And then we're going to say Google Ads, so I know what it's for. We'll click on Tag Configuration, and we'll click on Conversion Tracking. And then we need to drop in our conversion ID and our conversion label. So I'll come back over to our playbook, copy the conversion label, copy the conversion ID, and then go ahead and leave the rest of this alone. You can always come back, be more advanced, play with the settings and get fancy. So for triggering, here's where it's different from everything else that you've probably done so far. Here we want to say page view, not all pages. We don't want this to fire everywhere. We only want to fire it when someone hits this page. So we'll go ahead and click on page view and we will click on save. So now in our blurred out table here, we have the trigger that we just set up and we have the tag that we just set up to only fire on the trigger. So now let's make it live and test it out. Fingers crossed it actually works, right? Kind of embarrassing if it didn't. So we'll go and click on submit here. And of course, just give some basic information about what we just did. So I'll just go ahead and copy this and say Google Ads, and of course, put in the ID and label. You don't have to be this specific. It just helps with knowing what the heck went on months, if not years ago. We have some of these that are almost 9 or 10 years old now, so it really does help. So we'll go and click on publish here, skip the singing as always, and then we can see our version changes, all of our tags, our triggers that are set up. So let's go ahead and make sure that this is actually working. So what we'll do is we will use preview mode. So we'll go ahead and click on preview mode here, and then it will ask for our URL. Now, you don't want to put in just the URL of your website. You want to put in the URL of the page right before what you want to test, right? So coming back to our example, we have our landing page here, and then we also have our one-time offer page. And so what we're going to do is we're going to copy the URL of our landing page, not our confirmation page. And then we want to see if the flow of what we want to track actually works correctly, right? So we're going to go ahead and come over to Tag Assistant. We'll go ahead and paste that in there. We'll go ahead and connect. And once we do, we'll see that debug mode is connected. So we can go ahead and click on continue. This tag did not fire. That is a good thing. We don't want it to be firing on this page. So now let's go to our landing page, and then we'll go ahead and click on access now. And so our thank you page loads, and you can see we're still connected to Tag Assistant. So we can come back over to our preview and we can see that the conversion tag fired. So that's what we want to see. We want to see the conversion tag firing. You do need to be in debug mode to make sure the tag assistant mode like this, so you can see all of the tags and triggers that are firing, and you don't have to worry about trying to serve yourself an ad and click on it and get the right tag or triggers to fire. So that is all there is to it, to getting started with setting up your Google Ads conversion tracking. So we can go ahead and exit out of this, stop debugging, and then go back to our tag dashboard, and you are all set, good to go. So you can use, if we come back to our triggers, not variables, triggers, you can use this trigger for other platforms as well. So if you're driving traffic from multiple traffic sources, you can just say, hey, and you can connect tags from those other traffic sources to this trigger. So that's what makes this part of what makes Tag Manager so powerful and so easy to use. Now, when it comes to getting started with the Facebook pixel, you actually won't be doing much of anything inside of Tag Manager until you want to test. So go ahead and start by heading over to Facebook and log into the ads account or ads manager that you want to be working with. And once you are, I'm in a demo account here, or one that we haven't used in years. Good for YouTube video tutorials, right? We'll go ahead and click on the three little lines, all tools, and then you're going to want to click on Events Manager. So Events Manager up here, or Events Manager and manage your business. So we'll click on that. Now, if you haven't set up a pixel before, this is going to be the page where you can actually create your pixel for the first time. Now, for us, we already have one, so I'm going to click on our pixel, Fresh Companies Pixel. We'll come into our settings here, and then if you have already set it up, but you're setting up Tag Manager, we'll go ahead and click on Add Events, and then from a new website. And so once we do, we'll click on From a New Website, so we can manually install the code or use a partner integration. So partner integration is what we'll use, which is why we don't do much inside of Tag Manager, even though this is Tag Manager for the Facebook pixel. So we'll go ahead and use partner, click on Google Tag Manager. Sorry, that was kind of fast. Go back here. So you have all these partner options, right? So go ahead and use Google Tag Manager, and then we'll go ahead and click on next. We'll skip this for now, although it's pretty cool what you can do. Then it's going to ask you to authorize. Go ahead and select the Google Ads account that you're using to manage Google Tag Manager, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to allow, and then we can come back here and we'll have a drop-down list of the accounts that we have access to and the containers. So I'll click on Fresh Edge Companies, and AspireEntrepreneur.com is the one we're going to be using. And I'll go ahead and click on Finish Setup. Now, before you click, Facebook is going to instantly publish the pixel to your site. So as soon as you click Finish Setup, it's on your site, right? So if we come over to Tag Manager right now, and we come to our tags, you'll see that we don't have the Facebook pixel. But as soon as I click to add it, the Facebook pixel will show up. So we'll come over to Events Manager, we'll click on Finish Setup, and now the tag's on our site. So if we come back over to Tag Manager and we come over to versions here, we'll see latest live. Oh, well, it's X'd out because it puts my email everywhere. So let's come back over to tags and we'll refresh the page. And now you'll see the pixel ID has been added here. So if we click on this, now it's the meta pixel. I'm just going to call it Facebook. We all know it's still Facebook. And then you have your pixel ID. So I'm going to go ahead and save that pixel ID to our Tag Manager playbook here. So link in the description to grab a copy of this. This is something that we use to stay organized with all of our tag installs. And because I'm OCD, I'm going to just rename this so I know what it is in the future, and go ahead and click on Save. So that is our Facebook pixel. It's on our site. It's good to go. So I'll come back over to Events Manager, and now we can actually start setting up some events. So when it comes to Tag Manager, you can set up triggers, and you can actually create a custom install with the Facebook pixel where it can start interacting with the triggers you already have. It's super cool, but it is also a lot more work than just using the Events Manager to set it up for you. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come over to our landing page. So this is a page on our site, and I'll come back over to Events Manager. I'll paste in the URL, and I'll click on Open Website. And once the page loads, it might take a couple minutes for Facebook to figure out the pixels on your site. So if it's not working correctly or it says it's not there, but you see it inside of Tag Manager, just give it a minute or two. And then we'll go ahead and click on Track Button. And so what we want to do is click on our button. Facebook can see that this is a button, and then we'll click on Lead. We don't want to include a value, and then we'll click on Confirm. So now every time someone goes and clicks this button and to submit the form, we're going to count them as a lead. Now the advantage of doing it this way, that was super easy. We're done, right? The disadvantage is when you're going through preview mode in Tag Manager, that's not necessarily going to show up. So just keep that in mind. There is a trade-off for this, but typically if you're really focused on Facebook ads, just go ahead and use this interface. It's going to save you a lot of coding headache. You can always switch over to Tag Manager and be more advanced in the future. So we'll go ahead and click on Finish Setup. We'll go ahead and finish. We'll skip our form here, and we'll come back to our tool. So I'll go ahead and exit out of, or we'll just click Next, Confirm, and we'll go ahead and finish. Now in the future, now that it's inside of Tag Manager, if you want to set up additional events, what you can do is you can click on Add Events from Pixel, open Event Setup tool, and then let's say we have our sales page here. So I'll go ahead and copy our sales page. I'll drop the website URL, open the website, and then you can go through the exact same process we just went through, except this time if it's a sales page and we're saying that this is a checkout button, we could track a button, click on this, event, add to cart, don't include a value. And so this is someone adding to cart. So it's not a sale, so we don't want to track the value yet, but this is someone going to our checkout page. So we'd go ahead and click on confirm, and then we'll finish the setup. And now we have an add to cart event. And that's how simple this whole process is, setting up events inside of Facebook ads. So last but not least, you can come back over to Tag Manager, and to make sure that it's working properly, you can come over to our preview mode here. So we'll go ahead and click on preview, and we'll just type in our landing page URL, click on connect, debug mode will show up. And if we click on continue, we can see the Facebook pixel has actually fired. And again, you won't see the Facebook events showing up in here unless you modify the Facebook pixel and start having your own triggers and variables inserted into the Facebook pixel, which is a lot more complex than just using the events manager that's built into Facebook. So jump back over to Tag Manager, and we are all set with the Facebook pixel. And you are an absolute champion. So hit that like button, comment below to let me know you made it all the way to the end. Sincerely hope you are all set up good to go with all of the tags, triggers, and events we've gone through. Tag Manager Playbook linked up in the description to help you stay organized through this process, map out what you should be tracking and maybe not tracking in terms of your funnel set up. And make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive marketing guides just like this one, and some that are a whole lot shorter. And until the next, keep building the business you love.